Before you dive into this gripping tale of social defiance and unexpected recognition, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and comment below with your thoughts. Your support helps us share more powerful and inspiring narratives. The assistant's ascent. Invited as a joke, she arrived a goddess. Imagine the hushed gasps, the sudden silence that fell over the ballroom. He invited his assistant as a cruel joke, a calculated move to humiliate her in front of the city's elite. But when she arrived, radiating a quiet power and grace that captivated every eye, suddenly everyone regretted it. This is the story of Evelyn Price, a woman underestimated, dismissed, and openly mocked, who with one elegant entrance shattered expectations and revealed the true meaning of class. The invitation. "Are you seriously going to invite her?" Charlotte Hayes crossed her arms, looking at Mr. Oliver Rivas with that smile that he knew too well. "Don't tell me you're turning charitable." Oliver didn't even look up from his documents. Evelyn was organizing some files near his desk, pretending not to listen. "It's the firm's annual party," he replied coldly. "All employees are invited." "All important employees," Charlotte corrected, raising her voice just enough for Evelyn to hear. "Or is your assistant going to understand what adults talk about?" The other partners chuckled quietly. Evelyn gripped the papers in her hands, but remained silent. "Charlotte's right," intervened Mr. Richard Davies, one of the senior partners. "Our kind doesn't mix with, well, you know." Oliver finally looked up. For a second, his eyes met Evelyn's. She looked at him without pleading, without hope. Just with that silent dignity he had never been able to interpret. "Evelyn," he said, and his voice sounded harsher than he intended. "You are cordially invited to the party this Saturday. I hope you know how to behave." The silence became heavy. Evelyn carefully placed the files on the desk, as if they were made of crystal. "Thank you, Mr. Rivas," she replied without emotion. "I'll consider your invitation." Charlotte let out a laugh. "Consider it? Do you have something better to do on a Saturday night?" Evelyn turned to her. Her dark eyes gleamed for an instant. "I always have options, Ms. Hayes. Some are just not worth pursuing." Charlotte's smile froze. The partners exchanged awkward glances. "Well," Oliver murmured, clearing his throat. "That's settled then." Evelyn gathered her belongings unhurriedly. When she reached the door, she paused. "One question, Mr. Rivas. Does this invitation come with any particular intention?" Oliver felt his throat dry. The others awaited his answer. "Just, we want everyone to have fun," he lied. Evelyn nodded slowly. "I understand. Have a good afternoon." The door closed softly behind her. Charlotte burst into laughter. "My God, did you see her? Like she was an offended queen." "It'll be fun," Richard added, "seeing how she tries to fit in with us." Oliver said nothing. He stared at the door where Evelyn had exited, with a strange feeling in his chest that he couldn't identify. That night, Evelyn arrived at her small apartment completely exhausted. Her younger sister, Mia, was studying at the dining room table. "How was your day?" Mia asked, without looking up from her books. Evelyn collapsed onto the sofa. "I was invited to the company party." Mia raised her eyebrows. "And is that good or bad?" "Bad. Very bad." "Why?" Evelyn closed her eyes. She could still hear Charlotte's laugh, see the mocking glances of the partners. "Because they didn't invite me to include me, Mia. They invited me to humiliate me." Her sister put down her pencil and walked over to the sofa. "Evelyn, look at me." Evelyn opened her eyes. Mia had that serious expression she used when she wanted to give important advice. "What do you want to do? Stay home, pretend I'm sick. Is that what you really want?" Evelyn sighed. "No, I want to go and show them they're wrong about me. But I'm scared of making a fool of myself." Mia sat beside her. "Sister, you've worked at that firm for 3 years. You've seen how they behave, how they talk, how they move in their world. Do you think you can't do the same? They were born into that world. I wasn't, but you're smarter than all of them put together. Mia took her hand. And you have something they'll never have. What? Real class. Not the kind you buy with money, but the kind you carry in your soul. Evelyn felt her eyes well up with tears. What if I'm wrong? What if I just confirm what they already think of me? Mia squeezed her hand. Then you're wrong with your head held high. But Evelyn, you've always been bigger than that place. It's time they realized it. Evelyn remained silent, looking out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Oliver and Charlotte were in their world of luxury. Certain she wouldn't dare to show up. Maybe it was time to surprise them. What would you advise Evelyn to do? Attend the party and face the potential humiliation, or stay home and avoid the conflict? Share your thoughts below. The grand entrance. Saturday night, the ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel buzzed with elegant conversations and practiced laughter. Oliver adjusted his tie for the 10th time, looking towards the entrance every few minutes. Waiting for someone? Charlotte appeared by his side, radiant in a golden gown that cost more than Evelyn's monthly salary. Just checking that everything is in order, he lied, taking a sip of whiskey. Relax, darling. Your little assistant surely stayed home watching TV shows. Charlotte laughed. It's obvious she wasn't coming. Richard approached with 2 other partners, all with drinks in hand. Still waiting for the show? He asked sarcastically. I'll bet she doesn't even have a decent dress. Or maybe she'll come in her office uniform, another added, provoking laughter. Oliver forced a smile, but something in his stomach twisted. A part of him hoped Evelyn wouldn't come, to avoid the humiliation everyone had planned. Another part wanted to see what would happen if she dared. Ladies and gentlemen, the master of ceremonies announced. Dinner is served. The guests began to move towards the main dining room. Oliver was walking next to Charlotte when the murmur of conversations abruptly stopped. He turned towards the entrance and felt the air escape his lungs. Evelyn stood in the doorway, completely motionless. She wore a classic red dress, simple but perfectly cut, that enhanced her figure without exaggeration. Her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore no flashy jewelry, just small earrings that sparkled discreetly. Her eyes swept calmly across the room, as if she owned the place. The silence stretched for seconds that seemed eternal. Some guests looked at her with curiosity, others with poorly disguised surprise. Evelyn began to walk. Her steps were confident, measured. She didn't look at the floor or seem nervous. She moved as if she had been born in ballrooms like this. My God! Someone murmured behind Oliver. Who is that woman? Charlotte had turned pale, her hand gripping Oliver's arm. It's impossible, she whispered. How can she look like that? Evelyn approached the main group. When she was in front of Oliver, she gave a slight nod. Good evening, Mr. Rivas. Thank you for the invitation. Her voice sounded serene, polite. None of the shyness she displayed in the office. Evelyn. Oliver could barely articulate her name. You look different. She smiled, and that smile completely transformed her face. Different? I just put on a dress, Mr. Rivas. Nothing more. Richard coughed uncomfortably. Yes, well, what a surprise to see you here. Surprise. Evelyn looked directly at him. Didn't you expect me to come, Mr. Davies? No, of course we did. That is, Charlotte interrupted, regaining her composure. Richard means we're very happy to have you here, though I must say that dress looks interesting. Did you buy it especially for the occasion? The venom in her voice was evident, but Evelyn didn't flinch. Actually, I've had it for years. Sometimes the simplest things are the most elegant, don't you think? Charlotte narrowed her eyes. Evelyn had just politely told her that her golden dress was vulgar. Of course, Charlotte replied with a forced smile. Though I suppose for someone in your position, it must be difficult to know exactly what to wear to these events. You're right, Evelyn nodded. Fortunately, elegance can't be bought with money. You either have it or you don't. A murmur ran through the group. Several guests had approached to listen to the conversation. Evelyn had responded to Charlotte's attack without raising her voice, without losing her smile, but her message had been clear. Oliver watched the scene mesmerized. This was not the shy, silent Evelyn from the office. This woman had a presence that filled the space, a confidence that didn't need to shout to be noticed. "Evelyn," a voice said behind her. Everyone turned. An older, elegantly dressed man approached with a genuine smile. "Mr. Dubois?" Evelyn's face lit up. "What a surprise to see you here." "My dear Evelyn." The man kissed her on both cheeks. "When I saw your name on the guest list, I couldn't believe it. Do you work with these gentlemen?" Oliver frowned. Pierre Dubois was one of Europe's most important investors, an occasional client of the firm. "I'm Mr. Rivas's assistant," Evelyn replied naturally. "Assistant?" Dubois looked at Oliver in surprise. "Do you know who this young woman is, Oliver?" Oliver shook his head, feeling increasingly confused. "Evelyn was the coordinator of the literacy program we funded in Paris 3 years ago. Her project helped over 1,000 immigrant families. An extraordinary woman." The group fell into complete silence. Evelyn just smiled modestly. "It was an honor to work on that project, Mr. Dubois." "And she spoke perfect French," the man continued. "Evelyn, you must tell me what you're doing now. Are you still working on social programs?" Charlotte looked as if she had seen a ghost. Richard had stopped smiling. Oliver realized he knew absolutely nothing about the woman who had been his assistant for 3 years. Evelyn Price had just changed all the rules of the game, and the night had just begun. How do you think Oliver and the other partners are feeling in this moment, now that Evelyn's true background has been revealed? Is this just public humiliation, or something more profound? Share your thoughts. Truths revealed at dinner took place in a tense atmosphere that only Evelyn seemed not to notice. Charlotte had managed to strategically seat herself near her, ready to attack at the opportune moment. "Evelyn, dear," Charlotte began, as she cut her salmon, with deliberately refined movements. "It must be fascinating to work with such sophisticated people after coming from such a different background." Evelyn chewed calmly before replying. "Are you referring to working with wealthy people after working with poor people?" The direct question made several diners stop their forks mid-air. "Well, I wouldn't have put it in such crude terms," Charlotte laughed nervously. "Why not? Poverty isn't a contagious disease, Ms. Hayes, and wealth isn't a guarantee of sophistication." Richard coughed uncomfortably. "You must have had to adapt a lot to work at our firm." "On the contrary," Evelyn smiled. "I found that people are basically the same no matter how much money they have. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone needs respect. Everyone makes mistakes." "What a quaint perspective," Charlotte murmured, "though I suppose it's easy to philosophize when others pay the bills." This time, Evelyn didn't reply immediately. She took a sip of wine and looked at Charlotte with genuine curiosity. "Have you ever worked, Ms. Hayes?" "Of course I've worked." Charlotte straightened up. "I oversee my family's investments. I coordinate charity events. I mean, worked for a salary, waking up every morning knowing that if you don't, there's no money for rent." The silence became awkward. Evelyn continued in a soft voice. "I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that every perspective is valid. You see the world from your reality, I from mine." At that moment, a man approached the table. He had a professional camera hanging around his neck. "Excuse the interruption. I'm Mr. Ethan Clark from the Financial Times. Could I speak with you for a moment, Ms. Price?" Everyone turned to Evelyn, surprised. "With me?" Evelyn seemed genuinely confused. "I think you have the wrong person. Are you Evelyn Price, the coordinator of the Books Without Borders project in Paris?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "Perfect. I'm writing an article about successful social inclusion programs. Your project appeared in my research as one of the most effective of the last decade. Charlotte gripped her glass so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Mr. Clark, she interrupted. I believe you're interrupting a private dinner. No problem. Evelyn gracefully stood up. We can talk right here, if others don't mind. Clark turned on a small recorder. Tell me about the Paris project. How did you get families from 15 different nationalities to participate in a literacy program? Evelyn visibly relaxed. For the first time that night, she seemed completely in her element. The key was understanding that education isn't a favor we do for others. It's a right we give back. Many of those families had professionals, artists, intellectuals, who had lost their credentials when they migrated. Can you give me a specific example? There was a man, Amara, who had been a literature professor in Senegal. In Paris, he sold flowers in the subway. When he discovered he could teach French to other immigrants using African texts he himself translated, he regained not only dignified work, but his identity. Clark nodded, taking notes quickly. And the language aspect? I understand you coordinated sessions in French, Arabic, and English, and Spanish, and Wolof when necessary. My grandmother always said that every language you learn makes you a different person. I believe it makes you a more complete person. Impressive. Do you speak all those languages? Evelyn blushed slightly. I handle the basics well. For deep work, I always worked with native speakers. Clark turned to Oliver. Mr. Rivas, you must be very proud to have an employee of such international caliber. Oliver cleared his throat. All eyes were on him. Yes, of course. Evelyn is very valuable to our firm. What projects do you have her working on now? The question landed like a bomb. Oliver couldn't say that Evelyn spent her days filing papers and serving coffee. We're evaluating new opportunities to leverage her international experience, he lied. Clark smiled. Excellent. The world needs more initiatives like Ms. Price's. Could we take some photos? For the next few minutes, Evelyn posed for several photographs. She looked natural, comfortable. She answered questions intelligently and humbly. She spoke of her projects without sounding presumptuous. When Clark left, the table fell into absolute silence. Evelyn returned to her seat, as if nothing had happened. Well, she said, taking her glass. Where were we? Charlotte looked at her as if she were an alien. Richard seemed to have swallowed his tongue. Oliver realized that he had spent 3 years working alongside an extraordinary woman without even trying to get to know her. And the most disturbing thing of all was that Evelyn didn't seem to notice the stir she had caused. For her, all this was simply normal. The night had just begun, but the rules of the game no longer existed. What do you think is the biggest takeaway from this dinner conversation for Oliver and his partners? Has Evelyn's quiet dignity and impressive background irrevocably shifted their perspective? Share your thoughts. The firm's reckoning. Monday morning, Oliver arrived at the office 30 minutes late with a headache that threatened to split his skull. He hadn't slept well since the party. Images of Evelyn in that red dress, speaking naturally in front of cameras, replayed in his mind like a broken record. His secretary, Martha, was waiting for him with a pile of messages and a strange expression. Mr. Rivas, you need to see this, she said, handing him her tablet. On the screen, a YouTube video showed Evelyn entering the hotel ballroom. The title read, "The Assistant Who Stunned the Elite. Her Story Will Shock You." It already had over 200,000 views. How the hell? Oliver slumped into his chair. The video went viral last night. It's all over social media. The full interview also came out in the Financial Times. Oliver played the video. The camera perfectly captured the moment Evelyn entered the room and the silence that followed. Then it showed fragments of her interview with Clark, where she spoke of social projects with evident passion. The comments were overwhelming. What an incredible woman. I wish there were more people like her. Look how those rich snobs are looking at her. They're green with envy. She truly has real class. Did you see the blonde's face? Haha, pure venom. Oliver's phone rang. It was Richard. Oliver, did you see the disaster? We need to talk, now. 15 minutes later, the four main partners were gathered in the boardroom. The atmosphere was heavy. This is a catastrophe. Richard paced back and forth. Our firm looks like a nest of elitists who exploit their employees. The phone hasn't stopped ringing, added Mr. Charles Thompson, the senior partner. Journalists, activists, even some clients asking what's going on. And all because of your brilliant idea to invite the maid. Mr. Arthur Hayes, Charlotte's father, snapped at him. What were you thinking? Oliver clenched his fists. Evelyn is not a maid. She's our executive assistant. Executive assistant? Richard let out a bitter laugh. Since when does serving coffee make you an executive? Did you know she speaks 5 languages? That she coordinated international projects before working here? Oliver stood up. Did you ever bother to read her resume? Her resume? Thompson looked at him with contempt. Oliver, we hire people like her to do the dirty work, not to give us moral lessons. At that moment, the door opened. Charlotte burst in like a hurricane, her eyes red, her makeup smeared. This is a disaster, she cried. I'm being humiliated all over social media. There are memes of my face, Oliver. Memes! She dramatically slumped into a chair. My friends aren't talking to me. My stylist says I better change my image because mine is already ruined. All because of that. That woman. Charlotte, calm down. Oliver tried to touch her shoulder, but she pulled away. Don't touch me. This is your fault. You invited her. You allowed her to humiliate us. Richard seized the moment. Oliver, we have to take drastic measures. The firm's image is at stake. What kind of measures? Obviously, Evelyn has to go today. Fire her? For what reason? You need a reason? Thompson leaned back in his chair. Find something. Lateness, errors in documents, whatever. But if you fire her now, Charlotte intervened, wiping her tears. It's going to look like revenge. The media will make an even bigger scandal. Arthur Hayes smiled maliciously. Not if we do it right. A review of her work. Some conveniently discovered errors. Maybe attitude problems. These things take time. Oliver stared at these men he had considered his partners, even his friends. In their faces he saw something he had never noticed before. Fear. Fear that someone like Evelyn could expose them for what they truly were. No, he said softly. Pardon? No, we're not firing Evelyn. Richard straightened up. Oliver, don't be naive. This woman is destroying our reputation. Our reputation or our hypocrisy? The silence was tense. Charlotte looked at him with narrowed eyes. Do you like that woman, Oliver? The question landed like a slap. Oliver felt all eyes on him. This has nothing to do with personal preferences. Then prove it. Thompson leaned forward. Prove your loyalty still lies with us. Oliver looked out the window. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm. But inside that office, something fundamental had changed. He could no longer pretend he didn't see the cracks that had always been there. His phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. Mr. Rivas, I'm a journalist from CNN. Could we talk about Evelyn Price and the working conditions at your firm? Oliver turned off his phone and looked at his partners. I need time to think. Time's up, Richard responded. Either she goes, or this gets much, much worse. As he walked out of the boardroom, Oliver couldn't help but wonder how he had gotten there. A week ago, his life was predictable, comfortable. Now he felt as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff, and someone had just lit the fuse of a bomb. The problem was, he no longer knew if he wanted to extinguish the fuse or simply jump. What do you think of Oliver's sudden change of heart and his challenge to his partners? Is this a genuine turning point for him or a desperate move to save face? Share your theories in the comments. A public apology and a new path. 2 weeks after the scandal, Oliver tried to maintain normalcy, but the fissures were evident everywhere. Evelyn continued working as if nothing had happened. But now the other employees looked at her with a mix of respect and curiosity that hadn't existed before. The acid test came onto Thursday night. The partners had organized a dinner with potential Japanese investors at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Charlotte insisted on accompanying Oliver, as she always did at important meetings. "You need to project stability," she had told him while getting ready in her apartment. "After all this scandal, clients need to see that you're still the same." But Oliver no longer felt the same. And that night, things completely spiraled out of control. It all began when they arrived at the restaurant. The Japanese investors were already waiting, along with Richard and Charles. The introductions were cordial, professional. Oliver thought perhaps the evening would pass without incident. He was wrong. Halfway through dinner, while discussing the details of a possible merger with an Asian firm, one of the Japanese casually mentioned having seen Evelyn's video. "Very impressive, your employee, Mr. Rivas. In Japan, we greatly value people who combine humility with excellence." Charlotte put her glass down with more force than necessary. "Well, you know how these things are on social media. Everything is greatly exaggerated." The Japanese man looked at her with polite curiosity. "Exaggerated? But Ms. Price's achievements are documented. Her project in Paris was recognized by UNESCO." Charles coughed uncomfortably. "Mr. Tanaka, I believe you're deviating the conversation from important topics." "On the contrary," another investor intervened. "A company that harnesses talent regardless of social background is exactly the kind of firm we want to work with." Charlotte let out a forced laugh. "Please, they talk as if she were Mother Teresa of Calcutta. She's just another employee who got lucky with the cameras." The silence that followed was icy. The Japanese exchanged glances. "Excuse me," Mr. Tanaka said in a controlled voice. "But did you just minimize your colleague's professional achievements?" "Colleague?" Charlotte laughed louder. "She's an assistant. Her job is to organize files and serve coffee. I don't see why we have to pretend she's something more." Oliver felt the blood rush to his head. "Charlotte, that's enough." "Enough what? Telling the truth?" She turned to him, her eyes blazing with anger. "We're all pretending that woman is some kind of saint, just because she caused a scandal on social media. Charlotte, please." "No!" She stood up, clearly agitated. "I'm sick of this. Sick of everyone treating that intruder as if she's special. You know what I think? I think she's trying to steal my rightful place." The Japanese watched the scene with thinly veiled disgust. Richard tried to intervene. "Charlotte, perhaps you should..." "What should I do? Shut up while that woman destroys everything we've built." She turned to Oliver. "Or have you already forgotten who was with you all these years? Who supported you when you started the firm? Who has been at every event, every important meeting?" Oliver slowly stood up. "Charlotte, let's go, now." "I'm not going anywhere. These gentlemen need to know the truth. They need to know that Evelyn Price is an opportunist who is using her sob story to manipulate everyone." Mr. Tanaka wiped his mouth with his napkin and stood up. "Mr. Rivas, I believe this dinner is over for us." "Mr. Tanaka, please allow me to explain." "There's nothing to explain." The Japanese man spoke coldly. "In my culture, respect for employees is fundamental. What we have just witnessed tells us everything we need to know about this firm." The investors withdrew in silence, leaving the partners at a table full of tension. Charlotte was still standing, breathing heavily. "Perfect," she shouted. "Now because of that woman, we lost a multi-million-dollar contract." "Because of that woman? No!" Oliver finally exploded. "Because of you! Because of your spoiled princess attitude that can't stand someone else getting attention." Charlotte looked at him as if he had slapped her. "How dare you? How dare I?" "You know what, Charlotte? You're right. Evelyn Price is stealing something. She's stealing the illusion that we are better people because we have money." Richard tried to calm the situation. "Oliver, we're all agitated." "No!" Oliver turned to him. "Do you know what I discovered this week? that Charlotte has been using my name to close deals without my authorization, that she's been promising mergers and partnerships that I never approved. Charles paled. Oliver, what are you talking about? He's talking about how he investigated me behind my back. Charlotte lifted her chin defiantly. Yes, I used your name. Yes, I moved some contracts. And so what? Someone had to make decisions while you were distracted playing social benefactor. Playing? Oliver looked at her with a mix of disgust and sadness. Charlotte, we've been together for 3 years. I thought I knew you. You know me perfectly. You just never liked what you saw. Oliver was silent for a moment. Then, in a very calm voice, he said, You're right, and that ends tonight. He turned and walked towards the exit, leaving Charlotte screaming his name in the middle of the city's most elegant restaurant. Outside, under the light rain that had begun to fall, Oliver realized that for the first time in years, he felt free. What is the core conflict revealed between Oliver and Charlotte? Do you think Oliver's actions here mark a true break from his old ways? Share your thoughts. A new beginning. An honest partnership. 3 days after the disaster at the restaurant, Oliver found himself sitting in front of his computer at 5 in the morning, writing and deleting the same paragraph for the 10th time. Beside him, a cold cup of coffee and several crumpled drafts bore witness to his internal struggle. Evelyn had been absent since Monday. Martha had told him she had asked for a few personal days, but Oliver suspected Richard or Charles had something to do with her sudden absence. The rumor in the office was that the partners were preparing a termination letter. The official version would be staff restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. Oliver finished writing and reread the document once more. It was a letter addressed to the city's most important newspaper, and he knew that once he sent it, there would be no turning back. At 8 in the morning, when Richard arrived at the office with his usual air of superiority, he was met with an unpleasant surprise. His assistant handed him the morning newspaper with a worried look. On the opinion page, with a photo of Oliver Rivas, appeared an article titled, A Necessary Apology and a Pending Reflection. Richard read the first lines and felt his blood run cold. As a founding partner of Rivas and Associates, I feel the need to publicly address an exceptional employee and society in general to offer an apology that should have come a long time ago. Evelyn Price has worked at our firm for 3 years. During that time, my partners and I treated her not as the skilled professional she is, but as a second-class employee whose sole function was to facilitate our daily work. The scandal of last week was not caused by Evelyn. It was caused by our inability to recognize the talent we had in front of us. It was caused by our class arrogance, our social blindness, our comfort with a system that benefits us at the cost of keeping others in positions that do not reflect their true capabilities. Richard rushed to Oliver's office, but found it empty. His assistant explained that he had arrived early, left some documents, and left without saying when he would return. Richard's phone rang. It was Charles. Did you see the newspaper? Oliver's gone completely mad. I'm reading it now. This is a disaster. He's sinking us. Do you know how many clients have called this morning asking if it's true that we discriminate against our employees? Richard continued reading. Evelyn Price does not need us to defend her. Her achievements speak for themselves. But we do need to defend ourselves from the moral mediocrity that allows us to sleep soundly while we waste talent due to class prejudice. Therefore, effective today, Evelyn Price will be promoted to Coordinator of Special Projects, with the salary and responsibilities she always should have had. I also announce my temporary withdrawal from the firm's daily operations to reflect on the kind of company we want to be and the kind of people we want to be. He's crazy! Charles shouted over the phone. Coordinator of Special Projects? He's giving her a position that doesn't even exist. Wait, there's more. Richard continued reading. To Charlotte Hayes, who for years was my romantic partner and with whom I planned to share a future, I say that love cannot be built on a foundation of contempt for others. Her reaction last week showed me a side of her that I had refused to see. To my partners, I remind you that a company is not just a business. It is a reflection of our values as human beings. And to Evelyn, I apologize for the 3 lost years, for not having seen what everyone else saw from day one. That you are an extraordinary woman who deserves much more than this place has given you. Richard dropped the newspaper. His cell phone kept ringing. Charles continued shouting over the phone, but he no longer heard him. Meanwhile, in a small downtown coffee shop, Evelyn read the same article with trembling hands. Mia was sitting opposite her, observing every expression on her face. "What do you think?" her younger sister asked. Evelyn folded the newspaper slowly. "I think it's very easy to write beautiful words when you have nothing left to lose." "Do you think he's not sincere?" Evelyn sighed. "I think Oliver Rivas finally woke up. The problem is he woke up 3 years too late." Her phone began to ring. Unknown numbers, one after another. Journalists, television producers, social organizations. Oliver's article had turned Evelyn into a symbol, whether she liked it or not. "Are you going back to work?" Mia asked. Evelyn looked out the coffee shop window. Outside, people rushed to their jobs, each carrying their own invisible struggles. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "I don't know if I want to be Oliver Rivas's redemption project anymore." But deep down in her heart, something had changed. For the first time in 3 years, someone had truly seen her. The question was whether that was enough to build something new on the ruins of the old. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a number she recognized. It was Oliver. Evelyn looked at the screen for several seconds before deciding whether to answer. Evelyn let the phone ring until it stopped. Then it rang again, and again. On the 4th attempt, Mia looked at her in exasperation. "Aren't you going to answer? I'm not ready for that conversation." But the phone continued to ring intermittently throughout the morning. Text messages, missed calls, even an email that Evelyn deleted unread. Do you believe Oliver's public apology is truly heartfelt? Or is it a calculated move to salvage his reputation? What internal conflict do you think Evelyn is facing about accepting his apology or the new role? Share your thoughts. A meeting of equals. 3 weeks later, Evelyn had found a certain peace in her new routine. Job offers had poured in by the dozens after Oliver's article. Some were clearly opportunistic, but others came from serious organizations that valued her real experience. She had accepted a temporary position coordinating a digital literacy program for senior citizens. It didn't pay much, but it gave her the freedom to do what truly mattered to her. Oliver, according to what she had read in the newspapers, had kept his word. He had temporarily withdrawn from the firm and was involved in several free legal education projects for low-income communities. Evelyn had seen his photo in an article about a legal aid program in working-class neighborhoods. He looked different, thinner, less polished, as if he had exchanged his designer suit for something more real. The reunion happened by chance on a Saturday afternoon at the Greenwich Village Book Fair in the Historic Center. Evelyn was at an independent publisher's booth, browse a book about educational programs in Latin America, when a familiar voice said, "Is it good?" Evelyn turned around. Oliver was standing beside her, dressed in jeans and a simple shirt, carrying a bag full of books. Oliver, Evelyn. They stood looking at each other for a moment that felt eternal. He looked tired, but there was something different in his eyes, a peacefulness she didn't remember seeing before. "How are you?" he finally asked. "Good. Working on things I like. I'm glad to hear that." Evelyn closed the book and put it back on the shelf. "I read about your new projects." "You did?" Oliver smiled slightly. "What do you think? It's easy to be generous when you have nothing left to lose." Oliver's smile faded. You're right, but sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what you never truly had. Evelyn studied him. There was no trace of the arrogant man she had known in the office. This Oliver seemed younger, more human. "Do you want to get some coffee?" he asked. "There's a coffee shop nearby that I know the place." They walked in silence through the cobblestone streets of the historic center. The fair had filled the area with families, students, readers of all ages. Evelyn noticed how Oliver greeted some street vendors naturally, how he stopped to give coins to a street musician. "How long have you been coming here?" Evelyn asked. "A few weeks. Since I started the legal aid program, many of our beneficiaries live in this area." "Our beneficiaries?" Oliver blushed slightly. "The program's beneficiaries. You know what I meant." Evelyn smiled for the first time since they had met. "Yes, I know what you meant." The coffee shop was small, noisy, full of students and local artists. Very different from the elegant places where Evelyn had seen Oliver before. They sat at a table by the window. Oliver ordered an Americano. Evelyn, chamomile tea. "How are things at the firm?" Evelyn asked. "Difficult. Richard and Charles are furious with me. We lost several important clients after the article." "Do you regret it?" Oliver considered the question seriously. "The damage to the firm, yes. There were innocent people working there who had nothing to do with all this. But writing the letter, no." "And Charlotte?" "Charlotte moved to Miami. Her family has businesses there. I think she needed a change of scenery after everything." Evelyn nodded. She felt no satisfaction at Charlotte's downfall, only a kind of sadness at how unnecessary the whole conflict had been. "Evelyn?" Oliver leaned forward. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything after." "You're right," she interrupted him. "You have no right." He leaned back in his chair, accepting the blow. "But you can try," Evelyn added softly. "You can try to be the person you say you want to be without expecting me or anyone else to forgive you for who you were before." Oliver looked at her with something that could have been gratitude. "You know what's the hardest part of all this?" he said. "Realizing that for 3 years I had one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met in front of me, and I never bothered to truly see her." Evelyn took a sip of her tea. "Perhaps you weren't ready to see me. Perhaps I wasn't ready to be seen either. And now?" Evelyn looked him in the eyes. There was honesty there, but also uncertainty. Oliver Rivas was no longer the self-assured man who thought he had all the answers. "Now I think we're both learning to be different, and that's enough for today." They sat in silence, drinking their cups, while outside the fair continued its cheerful bustle. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt at peace with the unanswered questions. Sometimes, she thought, new beginnings didn't arrive with fanfare. Sometimes, they arrived simply as a quiet afternoon, shared with someone who had finally learned to see her. What is the significance of Oliver's admission that he wasn't ready to see Evelyn? How has their dynamic shifted from the initial invitation to this encounter at the book fair? Share your reflections. A partnership of purpose. 2 months after that encounter at the fair, Evelyn received an unexpected call. It was Oliver, but his voice sounded different, less confident, more human. "Evelyn, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to help me with something?" Evelyn was organizing materials for her digital literacy class when she answered the phone. "Help you with what?" "The legal aid program isn't working as I expected. People don't trust us, and I think I know why." Evelyn stopped what she was doing. "I'm listening. We're still acting like saviors descending from our ivory towers. Could you meet with me? Just to talk, to help me understand what I'm doing wrong." Evelyn looked out the window of her small temporary office. Outside, some of her older students practiced sending text messages on their new phones, laughing at their own mistakes. "Where? How about the same coffee shop as last time? Tomorrow at 3? I'll be there." The next day, Evelyn arrived a few minutes early. Oliver was already there, but he wasn't alone. 3 people accompanied him: an older woman, a young man in a work uniform, and a teenager who couldn't have been more than 16. Evelyn. Oliver stood up when he saw her. "I'd like to introduce you to Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Lee, and Anna. They came to tell me why our program isn't working." Evelyn sat down, intrigued. Mrs. Peterson spoke first. "Ms. Evelyn, my grandson told me about you. He says you teach computer skills without making us feel silly." "You're not silly at all," Evelyn replied. "You're just learning something new." "Exactly," Mr. Lee intervened. "But when we went to Mr. Rivas's place about my problem with my boss, they made us fill out like 10 papers, and they talked to us in words we didn't understand." Anna nodded. "They scheduled appointments at 10 in the morning when my mom is working. As if we don't know that poor people can't just miss work like that." Oliver looked genuinely embarrassed. "That's why I invited them to talk to Evelyn. She understands these things better than I do." Evelyn looked at the 3 people and then at Oliver. "May I ask you something? What would you need for legal aid to truly help you?" Mrs. Peterson brightened. "That it be in the evenings or on weekends, and in places we already go, like the community health center or the neighborhood school, and that they explain things to us like normal people," Mr. Lee added. "Not like we're illiterate, but not like we're lawyers either, and that they understand that sometimes the legal problem is just one part of the real problem," Anna said. "My mom needs a divorce, but she also needs a job and childcare for my younger siblings." Evelyn nodded, making mental notes. What if there was someone who knew both the legal problems and the other problems? Someone who could help you connect with different services. Mrs. Peterson's eyes lit up. "That would be perfect. Like what do you call it? A coordinator?" Evelyn smiled. "Exactly. A coordinator." She turned to Oliver, who had been listening in silence. "What do you think?" "I think I need a coordinator," he replied without hesitation. "Someone who understands both the legal part and the human part." Evelyn felt a tingle in her stomach. It wasn't the first time she had been offered a job, but this time it felt different. This time, she felt the offer came from someone who truly saw her. "Are you offering me a job? I'm asking you to teach me how to do this right. The job is yours if you want it, but more than that, I'm asking you to be my partner." "Partner?" "The program needs someone to make the important decisions, someone who understands the people we want to help. I can be the lawyer, but you would be the director." Evelyn looked at Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Lee, Anna. In their faces, she saw genuine hope, not the false gratitude she had learned to recognize in so many well-intentioned but poorly executed social programs. "Can I think about it?" "And I think about..." Of course. After the others left, Evelyn and Oliver were left alone in the coffee shop. "Why me?" Evelyn asked. "There are people with more experience in legal aid." Oliver looked her directly in the eyes. "Because in 3 years of working with you, I never saw you treat anyone as if they were less than you, not even me when I was behaving like an idiot." Evelyn felt something stir in her chest. "Oliver," she said, "I know I have no right to ask you to trust me after everything that happened, but I believe that together we could do something truly good, something that matters." Evelyn was silent for a moment, looking at her hands. "You know what's the hardest part of all this? That for the first time in my life, someone is seeing me exactly as I am, without projecting onto me what they need me to be, without trying to save me or use me to feel better about themselves." Oliver extended his hand across the table, not touching her, just offering it. When someone finally truly sees you, you no longer have to prove anything else. Evelyn looked at his hand, and after a moment, placed hers on top. "All right," she said softly. "Let's try." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was something much more real, and for that very reason, much more valuable. It was an honest beginning. What does Evelyn's acceptance of Oliver's partnership offer signify for her and for the community they aim to serve? How has their relationship evolved from one of power imbalance to one of mutual respect? Share your insights. A life built on respect and purpose. A year later, Evelyn arrived early at the office as she always did. It was no longer the small, borrowed room where they had started the program, but a space of their own, on the first floor of a building in the Lower East Side. The walls were filled with photos, graduations from digital literacy courses, families reunited after solving legal problems, children in scholarship programs. The program had grown beyond what anyone had imagined. It was no longer just legal aid, but a comprehensive center that offered everything from computer classes to entrepreneurship workshops. Evelyn had insisted that everything be free and that the hours be adapted to the real needs of the people. Oliver arrived half an hour later, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of pastries from Ms. Rose's stand, the lady who sold on the corner and who had now resolved her pension problems thanks to the program. "Good morning, Director," he said with a smile, placing one of the coffees on Evelyn's desk. "Good morning, People's Lawyer," she replied, without looking up from the files she was reviewing. It was their morning routine. Oliver brought the coffee. Evelyn organized the day. They had developed a working dynamic that functioned perfectly because neither of them tried to be someone they weren't. "How are this week's cases going?" Oliver asked, sitting in the chair opposite Evelyn's desk. "Mrs. Peterson is finally getting her full pension. Mr. Lee got paid for the overtime he was owed. And Anna?" Evelyn smiled. "Anna decided to study law." "Really? We got her a full scholarship at the public university. She says she wants to be like us when she grows up." Oliver laughed. "Like us? Do you remember when we were boss and employee?" Evelyn looked at him over the papers. "I remember when you thought you were my boss." "Touché." The door opened and Mia entered, who now worked part-time at the program while finishing her social work studies. "Evelyn, the magazine journalist is here. Should I let them in?" Evelyn sighed. Since the program had begun to receive national recognition, the media wouldn't leave them alone. They had rejected most of the interviews, but this one was for a serious educational magazine. "Let them in." The journalist was young, enthusiastic. For an hour they asked questions about methods, funding, future plans. But in the end, as always happened, they got to the personal questions. "You two have an interesting story," he said. "From conflict in the firm to partners in this project, how would you describe your relationship now?" Evelyn and Oliver looked at each other. It was the question that always came, and they never knew how to answer it. "We're colleagues," Evelyn finally said. "Friends?" Oliver added. "People who learn to work together," Evelyn continued. "And personally?" the journalist insisted. "There are rumors that, personally," Oliver interrupted firmly. "We are 2 people who decided that the work we do is more important than the rumors people want to invent about us." After the journalist left, Evelyn and Oliver organized papers in silence. "Does it bother you?" Oliver asked. "That they always ask about this?" Evelyn shrugged. "At first, yes, but I'm used to it now. People always need to romanticize things to understand them." "What if it were true?" Oliver asked softly. "What if there was something more between us?" Evelyn stopped writing and looked at him. "Is there?" Oliver considered this question seriously. "There's respect. There's admiration. There's affection. Is that enough to call it love?" "I don't know," Evelyn replied honestly. "But I know it's real. And I know it's ours, no matter what others call it." Oliver nodded. "I like our life just as it is." "Me too." It was true. They saw each other almost every day. They shared meals, laughed at private jokes, supported each other in difficult times. Oliver had been there when Evelyn had the flu. Evelyn had been there when Oliver received the news that his father had died. They didn't live together. They had no marriage plans. They didn't appear in romantic photos on social media. But they had something many official couples never achieved. They saw each other completely. They respected each other deeply. and they had built something important together. The world continued to be competitive, elitist, unequal. But within their small space, they had created something different. They weren't trying to change the whole world. They were just living more honestly within it. And at the end of the day, when they closed the office and walked together towards the subway station, Evelyn knew she had found something she had never looked for, but had always needed. Someone who saw her exactly as she was. And that, she decided, was enough. What is the ultimate message about love and partnership conveyed by Evelyn and Oliver's relationship? How does their unconventional ending offer a powerful commentary on societal expectations? Share your final reflections.